Welcome in to a Monday edition of Press Box Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles, along with my co-host, one of my co-hosts today, and that is Luke Jackson. Ross Grimsley is traveling with family and will rejoin us next Monday. But for now, got to tell you before we start delving into my power rankings, the O's, and some other stories in baseball, that AJ Michaels is one of our fine sponsors, along with the Costas Inn. Expert and award-winning AJ Michaels Heating, AC, Plumbing, and Home Performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. AC season is coming up fast. New rebates and discounts are available now. More at ajmichaels.com. Luke Jackson is with me. And Luke, I thought we'd dig into power rankings first. Got the O's dropping a spot from number two to number three. I've got the Tampa Bay Rays keeping the spot at number one. Texas Rangers, who've been moving up the last 3 weeks, they are now number two. Orioles number three. Houston number four. Yankees number five. Dodgers number six. And number seven is the Atlanta Braves. Number eight, the upstart Arizona Diamondbacks. Back in the top 10 are Toronto at 9 and Minnesota at 10. Milwaukee just misses, and there's really not a great reason that they're out of the top 10. Minnesota's in the top 10. What do you think about the top two right there? And ironically, I didn't do it by design. Those two teams square off this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday down in Tampa or St. Pete.
Yeah, and there's no question that will be the series to watch this coming week. That'll be a lot of fun. And with Texas, they are just mashing the ball. I think they hung about 40 runs on Seattle this weekend in Texas. They have a monster lineup. They spent money on the right guys with Simeon and Seager, and the young guys in their lineup like Jonah Heim.
An ex-Oriole, by the way.
Exactly. An ex-Aberdeen Ironbird, as a matter of fact. Josh Young, all of these guys have sort of popped at the same time. So when you have that kind of combination of the right veterans and young guys popping at the right time, you're getting what you see with Texas. And their starting pitching has been really, really good, even without having Jacob deGrom. Eovaldi was a good sign. Andrew Heaney was a good sign. John Gray was a good sign, and they've hit the mark.
They've done it right. It's interesting. They had John Daniels around as the team president / assistant. He was like the baseball operations guy. Right. They let go of him and brought in the tall pitcher. What's his name? Chris Young, Princeton guy. And Chris Young went right after, you got to give him credit, he went right after a difference maker in the manager's chair. That's Bruce Bochy. And Bochy can't be underestimated what Bruce Bochy has meant to this team. They made a very subtle move this week, too. They brought up a young pitcher. He's not so young. He's not 21 or 22. I think he's 25. Grant Anderson. Mm-hmm. And, every team is looking to have a mountain and a rock like right. Manager Brandon Hyde has in Bautista and Cano. Well, this Grant Anderson may be Will Smith's rock because they brought him up, and it won't surprise me if they've turned the eighth inning over to him, which makes an already dangerous team perhaps even more dangerous right now, Luke.
Yeah, and that's the big issue that they've had this year is holding on to leads in tight games because they've won in blowout fashion, and when they lose, it tends to be one-run games. And so going into the deadline here in the next several weeks, I expect them to make a push to get high leverage relievers in there. Right now, they have Will Smith closing. And going into the playoffs, I think you want Will Smith to be more of a seventh or eighth inning guy coming from the left side. Maybe you can match him up more against a part of a lineup that's like left, right, left and get more of a true closer.
What's been interesting about this guy Anderson, though, you make a good point that Smith is left-handed, so he's going to face, a lot of right-handed hitters. Number one is Bruce Bochy has some experience with him, having managed him in San Francisco. But maybe bringing Grant Anderson up now gives them 4 or 5 weeks to see how he's adjusting to the big leagues. Maybe he himself could be that guy. Possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to exhaust your internal options before you start giving up internal pieces to get bullpen help, which usually, for the most part, there are relievers available, but they're usually rentals and you're usually overpaying for them. And the Orioles fans have been down that road before. So we'll see what tricks Chris Young has up his sleeve in July. I expect him to be active in the relief market.
Luke, one of the other big stories in the power rankings this week, the Dodgers stayed at number 6, but they brought up like the farm. Literally, you have people say throw the whole farm at it. They brought up 3 pitchers in Gavin Stone, Michael Grove, and Bobby Miller. And I'd say overall the results were pretty good. 2 of the 3 of them really looked pretty good.
It's amazing the developmental work that the Dodgers do that, going into the season, I don't know if I had heard of any of those 3 guys that you just mentioned. They're all capable major league starters out of the chute. And you see a lot with them. And that's a testament to the work that they do in their minor leagues, that those guys are prepared when they do come up. And the Dodgers are one of those teams that, for whatever reason, it seems like they churn through starters. And I know some have mentioned that the guys they target in the draft sometimes have dropped in the first round or dropped in the draft because of health concerns, and they take a chance on them, they develop them, but they do have some health concerns usually. So sometimes that comes back to bite. But as I said before, they've done a remarkable job with their developmental program.
Yankees go out to the West Coast last week and played Seattle. They won a series, beating Seattle 2 out of 3, and then did the same thing down in Los Angeles. I know you watched that game Saturday. That was quite a catch by Aaron Judge, right field. And I don't know whether the league can find them or not, but the Dodgers really did not have that gate fastened as tight. I know Aaron Judge is a big guy, but gates like that are not supposed to open upon impact. And Aaron Judge suffered an injury. We think it's a small thing, but you saw how he stumbled there,
Right.
and that strained his toe. He almost has like the equivalent of a turf toe, I think. We'll see how long that lasts. But Yankees had a nice road trip for 6 games.
Yeah, they certainly did. And Severino looked really good for them. And he's been a little up and down since he got back from the injured list. But when he's right and when he's commanding the fastball and he can play the slider off of that, he's a difference maker for them. And that's how he looked last night. And then Garrett Cole went on Saturday. He only went 80 pitches for whatever reason.
That was a little strange, that them taking him out as quickly as they did.
Usually when you have your ace on the bump, you're going to let it ride with that guy for 105, 110 pitches, and it's kind of his game. But Aaron Boone took matters into his own hands in that game. We'll see what the deal is with Judge. Boone yesterday wasn't sure if it was going to be an IL situation. It seemed like there was like concrete or like a curb almost.
Yeah, there was definitely a curb, and he stumbled over it.
I hadn't seen that anywhere in Major League Baseball, and it seemed like
very poor design.
Really, it's not great. It seemed like he stubbed his toe on that as he was crashing into the wall. And you and I made a point that the fact that the wall sort of broke might have saved him like a broken wrist or a strained wrist or whatever. And I wasn't even thinking that, he might have broken a toe making that play. But he's a heck of an outfielder too. And he's not just a hitter, that's for sure.
Hey, I know that I think you have a buddy of yours. Is he work for the Diamondbacks as a scout?
Yeah.
Okay. So I know you're more conversing. You're not going to give any trade secrets away or anything like that, but they're a team that's kind of come out of nowhere. The Orioles, like last year, the Orioles sort of had a warning season to everybody that, hey, we're on the verge. We're getting better. The Diamondbacks didn't do that much last year to warn the world that they were about ready to contend. Can you talk a little bit about the Diamondbacks?
Yeah, I mean, if you're watching the Diamondbacks, there are a few players that you can't take your eyes off. One is Zach Gallen, who's one of the best pitchers in the in the league.
Yeah, terrific
Other-
left-handed pitcher. Yeah.
And the other is Corbin Carroll, who I might have mentioned to you in the past. Looks like he was built in like a baseball factory. He's impossibly fast. He can hit. He can hit for average. He can hit for power. He's like basically the perfect center fielder if you were like designing a center fielder.
Is he a little bit like the early Charlie Blackmon? A little bit, but a better baseball body really than Blackmon.
That's not bad. I don't
Yeah.
think bad at all. And he's like this kid that's like straight out of Central Casting.
Yeah.
And so it's, but he was one of the top prospects in the game last year, along with Gunnar Henderson. Carroll's gotten off to a little hotter start this year than Henderson has. But yeah, that very similar track as the Orioles, where they drafted high and they smartly drafted hitters. They didn't take chances on, in terms of health with pitchers. They drafted hitters, and more of those guys will come up in the next 12 to 24 months. And so very, very similar to the Orioles, very similar timetable and very similar rebuild strategy.
Yeah, and I think they've got a manager that matches well with that team. And I think there's a trust factor between team president down to manager there with Torey Lovullo. I think they realize, hey, there's nobody around that we can get that's any better right now. Hey, before we come back and talk a little bit about what managers might be on the hot seat and definitely get into the O's, I want to tell you a little bit about the hot seat out at the Costas Inn. That's if you want crabs, your first crab of the season, you better call ahead because, the supplies, I'm not saying they're scarce, but they are limited because the demand is so great this time of year. As soon as the weather starts to get warm, people think crabs and beer and crabs, or maybe beer, crab cake, and crab soup. But if you want steamed crabs, Costas Inn is the place to get them. 410-477-1975. 410-477-1975. They've been friends of mine and supporters of what I do for over 30 years. They've been in business at that same location, 4100 North Point Boulevard. It's a little tiny bit extra distance. It's worth the value you get back in food. 4100 North Point Boulevard, the Costas Inn. And always check out their menu, costasinn.com. Back with Luke Jackson here on our Monday Baseball Talk. Ross Grimsley's away. Gary Stein and I will be on Thursday evening at 7. We'll be talking to Pat Scarry, head basketball coach at Towson University. Luke, before we get into talking about the O's, any managers out there, and I'm asking the question and I'm answering it a little bit myself. I think the only one that strikes me that really might be on the hot seat would be Seattle's Scott Service, because this was a team, they've invested heavily. I know Jerry DiPoto and ownership know that Robbie Ray's out for the year, gigantic loss, but they've had some decent pitching. They've spent heavily on Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, and George Kirby are terrific. Bryce Miller was off to a great start his first 3 or 4 starts. The last couple, he's gone backwards, not a shock there. Your thought on Scott Service and whether or not he makes it through a tough stretch right now?
Yeah, Seattle's really been betrayed by its offense. I think they have 4 hitters who have 70 or more strikeouts. Does that sound right to you, Stan? And I think Teoscar Hernandez has more than 80 at this point. I think Teoscar is on pace for about 200 strikeouts this year. That's been a big disappointment. They brought Teoscar Hernandez in from Toronto, thinking that they would get the power hitter that the Jays have gotten for the past.
And he'd be a veteran presence that would sort of, and he's almost. It's not exactly the same as Jose Abreu, but it's sort of in that ballpark.
Right. And Julio Rodriguez, I think it's fair to say, is having a sophomore slump. Rookie of the year last year. Pitchers have made adjustments to him this year. It's on to him in the second half of the season to adjust back. I suspect he will, but for now, it's been a little bit of a struggle for him. And then I know Jared Kelenic got off to a really hot start this year. He's cooled off some. So the offense has really betrayed them this year. in terms of the manager,
He's very tight.
I'm
Jerry
gonna have to defer
Dipoto,
to
Jerry
you.
Dipoto and him go back to their days with the Arizona Diamondbacks, I believe. Or was it I think it was the Diamondbacks, but could be the Angels. Dipoto's been around. But those two are very tight. He handpicked him to be his manager there, but it's for one reason or another, it just doesn't seem like they ever really get over the hump.
No, you're exactly right. And you think back to how frustrating that series was with Houston last year when they they hung with Houston every single game except for Yordan Alvarez. They basically played them to a draw other than him. So, I mean, that was a really frustrating series for them. And then this year, I don't know if I spy anything that is necessarily indicative of the manager losing the clubhouse. They just haven't really
Right.
hit. And I don't know what the manager is supposed to. I mean, he can shake up the lineup some, I guess, but
well, it's just a historical sort of
Right.
fact that you don't change 25 players in midstream. They've got a lot of money committed to that team, and it figures to get more expensive. I look around, he's the one guy I see that could be in a little trouble. Other than him, do you see anybody else that hits you that is in trouble?
Well, some very panicky Mets fans have not been a big fan of Buck this year. And I know there was one move that kind of blew up.
It's all Buck's fault that Justin
all Buck's fault.
Verlander missed 2 months. And
Right. And but on Saturday, in a tie game, top of the 9th inning against the Blue Jays, Kevin Biggio is on deck with 2 outs, and Buck opts to pitch to Vladimir Guerrero with the base open. Vlad hits a double, and the Mets go on to lose that game 2-1. That was another Buck move that Mets fans weren't in love with necessarily. But I have to figure that, as Scherzer gets more comfortable this year, as Verlander gets more comfortable, and I know the Mets have a really tough June schedule. If they could just sort of tread water in June and give themselves an opportunity to take off in the second half, I still think that there's a chance of that happening. It's not the same Mets team as last year.
No.
I was talking with a buddy of mine who's a Mets fan, and I was like, by this time last year, the Mets had like 10 memorable wins.
Yeah.
It's been a much more of a grind. And he told me, he said, look, they're 30-30, and that is very indicative of how they played.
Yeah.
It's the old yeah.
And despite the injuries, you also look at Lindor, who they gave giant money to, and he's hitting about 230. Right. And Alonso, who I forgot they extended Alonso, didn't they?
Not yet.
Not yet. But he's hitting about 240. Right. Nimmo got off slowly, but he's hit better of late. But the two real culprits might be Starling Marte and Mark Canha, who both had, when they were healthy last year, were really plus players. Canha looks like he aged 10 years this year. Not doing well.
Which can happen once guys get into their early 30s.
Yeah.
That's not, like Marte just hasn't really hit the ball hard this year. And that's something that you worry about. And, it's one thing if a veteran is hitting the ball as hard as he normally does. Hasn't really been the case with Marte. So, I mean, they've got to, and they got to get Brett Beatty going, who they called up, who is their young third baseman. They've got to get him going. They got to get Mark Vientos going. They called him up to provide a spark. Hasn't really happened yet. However, Alvarez, the young catcher, has been really good.
Yeah.
Mets fans have been annoyed with Buck batting him 9th all the time. So we'll see.
All right. That was supposed to be our segment on managers, and Buck's really, I don't think he's in any real hot water. But I want to give you one more name. The Cardinals, I think they sort of shocked the world when they fired Mike Schilt 2 years ago after that season, because his body of work in St. Louis was pretty good. And worthy, I think he's a guy that could surface like if Seattle decides to make a change. But here's my question. Oliver Marmol, very different than Mike Schilt or even Mike Schilt's predecessors, Mike Matheny or Tony La Russa. Do you think he's going to survive? He's done a couple interesting, called out a player in Tyler O'Neill early in the season for not hustling, benched him the next day. And then went public with the problems with Wilson Contreras, outing that's stuff that seems like a savvy manager would want to handle it quietly behind the scenes, not make it page one news. Your thoughts on how Marmol is stationed there in St. Louis for tenure?
Yeah, Cardinals have maybe been the most disappointing team this year.
I had him like number 5 in my power rankings at the beginning of the season.
Right.
I underestimated Yadier Molina, but there's more going on there than meets the eye to me.
Yeah, I mean, and so when you have a team that's that is that disappointing, excuse me, I could talk. It wouldn't be the first time that the manager wore that, either during the season or after the season. The biggest issue for St. Louis has been their pitching. I mean, their starting pitching has really struggled, and really, frankly, the offense is
Stephen Matz has been a terrible pickup. Yeah.
And hasn't like Jack Flaherty's velocity been down all year?
He's had an very up and down, mostly down season. So they were counting on him to come back. And Miles Mikolas, who they gave big money to, he's pitched okay, but not to the kind of money they gave him.
And Wainwright at this point throws like 86.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so in the middle of that order with Arenado and Goldschmidt hasn't quite gotten heated up yet. And so you would expect during the summer months for that to change. It is strange, though. You don't normally see and hear about all the dirty laundry in St. Louis being aired publicly. That's odd.
I don't think it bodes well for Marmol sticking there and 10 days ago, it looked like they had righted the ship, and I spotlighted them in my power rankings that, hey, maybe it's a little early to put them to bed. But they went right back in and had a lousy week this past week, losing. Who did they lose to this week? They just lost this guy. I think they got swept by Pittsburgh.
Right.
Yeah, 3-game series.
I really got Pittsburgh back going again, because Pittsburgh in May, not great, but then they did a really nice job on the homestand. So
yeah, Pittsburgh had a 5-1 week and has come back up over 500 by 3 games. Let's turn to the Orioles.
Sure.
Luke, we got to be happy with the overall body of work, but you and I don't stop there at the overall body of work. We like to pick things apart and give the insights to some fans that we think we see. Most notable thing I saw this week was that, like I kept bugging Brandon Hyde, and I'm not saying he watching my Zooms or reading my columns or power rankings, but they not so subtly, moved Ryan Mountcastle, and he's batting 6 a good bit the last week. And I think that's about right. I would probably even drop him 1 peg lower than that. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting that it happens once Cedric Mullins is hurt. And I think that's just coincidental, because Ryan was really struggling, particularly against right-handed pitching for a while. And I think it came to a head sort of, around the same time as that Cedric got hurt. But anyway, what we have seen is him hitting 6 against right-handers.
Yep.
Yeah, still in the middle of the lineup against left-handers, given Ryan's track record against left-handed pitching. But time and time again, we see Ryan have uncompetitive and unproductive at-bats, particularly against right-handed pitching. And what's so frustrating about that is when he does swing at the right pitches, he has really good results. He hits the ball harder than anybody on the team. He hits the ball as hard as pretty much anyone in the league outside of Judge and Stanton. He's like 1 or 2 rungs lower than those guys. He's got a great swing. It's a big swing, but it's a really good swing. He's got so much talent, and he just struggles to put together consistent quality at bats to allow his talent to play.
Do you think he actually has a game plan when he goes up to the plate that's well thought out and designed?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I think they have a good
look. Mike Tyson used to say, "Everybody's got a plan until I punch him in the face."
Right. And I think they probably have a good plan with every one of their hitters going up to the dish. But once you're in the mix, once you're in the fire, so to speak, you tend to revert to what you know best, to the habits that you've developed over the years. And that goes for like anything in sports and anything in life. So I think that's what you see sometimes. And you and I were talking about this. Mullins, Santander, and Hayes were some degree of hacker when they were acquired by the Orioles and when they came up to the major leagues. And this group really worked with those guys. And it's taken about 3 years for those guys to get to the point they are now,
where they have much more professional at bats.
But it's taken that long. And with Mountcastle, I think the troubling thing is that the approach has almost gone backwards. It's almost regressed. And I know he had a really nice at bat, a couple of nice at bats yesterday. He had an RBI walk, a big plate appearance in that game, and then he went the other way later in the game. Where I love Ryan is when he's using that right center field gap, and he's staying on the ball and he's getting into good counts. He just doesn't do that enough, and I think dropping him down to 6th against right-handed pitching, I think is a very fair move by Brandon Hyde.
Yep, I do too. And I don't think Brandon Hyde's trying to play like a mind game, like punishing him, but I wonder if it gets through to him like, hey, why am I batting 6th now against right-handed pitching? And he's able to focus on making changes that are going to be necessary to make him a relevant player. You know, I always go back to the story, Luke, about one of his first chance meetings with Buck Showalter. And Buck Showalter said hello to him, and he said, "Hey, Skip, how you doing?" And he said, "Hey, it's good to see you here in training camp." He goes, "I saw you only walked 12 times last year." And Mountcastle kind of chuckled and go, "Yeah, how about that?" And Buck said, "Why are you laughing about that? That's how you're going to make money in baseball. You've got to get control of that. Nobody's telling you he's got to walk 110 times like a Barry Bonds or 130 times, but give me 40, 45 walks versus the 150 strikeouts. I can live with that. That means you're putting more balls in play, hitting more sacrifice flies, doing something to help your team win."
Yeah, and what those walks are indicative of is getting into better counts at large. And that's what you see with a guy like Adley Rutschman. Yep. He hits the ball really hard. Sometimes he'll have that green light on 3-0 and off he goes. But it's because he's getting into good counts and he understands what to look for in those counts and he pounces. Ryan doesn't get into nearly enough of those counts where he can take advantage of the situation. And frankly, the fact that he has 12 home runs and 40 RBIs is a testament to the kind of talent that he has. That he gets into so many bad counts and he's still able to be somewhat productive. So we've been talking about this with Mountcastle for the past, I don't know, 3, 4, 5.
Yep. I had concerns about him when I looked at the strikeouts to walk numbers all through his minor league career. One other player or one player, I want to talk about Cole Irvin real quick, but I want to talk about one other player that seems to be going the opposite way of Mountcastle, and that's Gunnar Henderson. We trust that this injury, back strain, isn't going to be anything too severe. Some stretching and maybe a little PT will get it back in place. But he's been hitting the ball a lot better. And also, he's been doing it against right-handed pitching, especially.
Yeah. And so I thought he on Friday, and this is the game before he had to leave, I thought those were some of his best swings of the year in terms of hitting
the home run. The home run was a monster shot.
Oh, that was awesome. Off the bat, I thought that was going to be a McCovey Cove shot. And I was almost surprised but it's a chilly night there. And that probably lessens the distance a little bit. But he also hit a fly ball to that monster gap in right center that they have in San Francisco, and ended up being a productive out. Got a runner from second to third. Off the bat, I thought that might have been gone. And then he had a hard hit single as well. So those were very, very positive developments for me. And I think over the past couple of weeks, you're starting to see a little more of that from him. And I got to give you a shout out here. In your spring training column after you came home, you wrote that, Gunner's having some struggles in spring training. He's 21 years old. Don't be surprised if he gets off to a slow start. Pitchers will just hang in there. He'll be fine, but it might be a little bit of a slow go for him to start. And that's exactly what happened. And Vance just got to hang in there with him. And he's gotten better defensively at third. I think it's probably helped that they're just having him play third. They're not shifting him all across the infield. I think that's helped him. And so I think in the second half of the season, he's going to have to be one of their better players if they want to make a playoff run. That's for sure.
No question about it. Luke, the starting pitch, look, the Orioles pitching staff in whole, we like to think it's so far superior than it was 2 years ago. It's not even funny, but it's not exactly like the big three is like Koufax, Drysdale, Claude Osteen. I'm dating myself by going back to the 60s. But it's not like Houston with when they had Verlander,
Right.
Framber Valdez, and Christian Javier. It's a decent group of guys. I'm just kind of confused. They made a trade. I understand it wasn't earth-shattering, the Hernandez for Cole Irvin trade, but Hernandez is a good prospect. He's going to be a good major league player one day. Cole Irvin, I didn't expect him to be a world beater, but what's going on? Because I can't figure out with a team that still has a team ERA of 4.06 or 4.1, why Cole Irvin is in the minor leagues.
Yeah, so you and I talked about this after Irvin's third start. It was against his former team, the Athletic.
You were like ready to throw in the towel on him.
Right, because his stuff was down, the command was down, and it was one of those touch and feel lefties that just don't work in the AL East.
Right.
They're just not going to work. And I said, Stan, they might have to back up the ball to Pimlico for him. Like, it's just like that kind of pitcher does not work here. And maybe they saw the same thing. Maybe, and I haven't seen.
Do you think they're like embarrassed and don't think he's even major league caliber? Because it's striking to me that he hasn't been able to make it back up, because it's not like he's pitching poorly at AAA.
Still not missing a lot of bats down there. And so maybe
he's only walked 4 guys in like 32 innings.
Right. And that was the biggest issue for him in the major leagues this year, was that he was walking too many guys. Yeah. And when you don't strike out many, those walks.
It's a bad combination.
Yeah, you can't bail yourself out. So I don't know what they're thinking in terms of that. They've only called him up once since then. It was just a very brief relief appearance. It was like a third of an inning or whatever it was. So I'm not really sure what they're thinking there. But I'm not, I sort of see what you're saying too, that this is an opportunity to finally get, once for all, an answer on whether you got the guy that you thought you got in that trade. Maybe they already have their answer. Maybe they already think the answers. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that Mike would like to have that trade chip back for this trade deadline.
I mean, what's fascinating to me is you've got the news that John Means isn't going to be coming in like the cavalry when they hope. Right. They've also gotten the news that, in my opinion, I'm not saying forget the whole season, but for the immediate future, it won't do any good to bring Grayson Rodriguez up after 2 good starts.
He's got some things to work on.
He's got some things to work on that, to me, he's an August call-up at the earliest, to me. Okay. So you got 4 starters, unless you got a trade brewing that's bringing in, somebody significant. I'd sure want to find out like 3 or 4 more starts of Cole Irvin to see whether we got something, or if nothing else, maybe he's that guy that should be in the long, put Voth in that spot and make him the long guy. I mean, the guy's he's at worst an adequate major league pitcher. I happen to think he's a little more than that, but we'll see. All right. It's been an interesting week, though. The Orioles had a bad homestand. Let's slice it and dice it. 2-4 against Texas and Cleveland, but they went out west and won in San Francisco 2 out of 3. I was impressed. I'm hoping they don't fall suspect and go into that that manager there, Craig Counsell's like web, and suddenly we have just a miserable series. I'm looking for the O's. I think they're capable of winning 2 out of 3 in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I think one thing that was really good to see is that really all homestand pretty sloppy, right? Even in the wins, there was one win that they were up like 8-1 against Cleveland. They ended up.
It was the uniforms. It was the Baltimore Connect uniforms.
And so they ended up having to use their high leverage guys to get to the finish line in that game. And then that bullpen game, that might have been the worst game of the year, just from start to finish, just bad, sloppy. The plan, the execution, the whole thing. But anyway, their first game in San Francisco, I think they may have played their cleanest game of the year that Friday in San Francisco. That was really good to see. And then they got diced up by Cobb, and then they bounced right back with Josh Lester having the big blow. So that was very good to see.
All right. That's going to do it for today. I thank Luke Jackson. He'll be back with us next Monday. Again, my power rankings are available at pressboxonline.com. They're up with a little bit of written piece in front of it. For Luke Jackson, I'm Stan the Fan, and we thank our friends at AJ Michaels, and we also thank our friends at the Costas Inn. That's it for today. Orioles back in action Tuesday, Wednesday night. And is Thursday a day game?
Thursday day game.
Thursday day game, all in Milwaukee. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.